Each morning presents a blank canvas, a fresh start untainted by the noise of the outside world. In those early moments, before the phone rings or the notifications start piling up, there exists a sacred window, a time when your mind is most impressionable, most receptive, and most pure. Choosing to begin that time with 10 minutes of silence or meditation can transform not only your mornings, but the way you live your entire life. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of stillness. It's a deliberate turning inward. A moment when the external world fades and the internal world has room to breathe. Most people wake up and immediately throw themselves into action. The mind is instantly bombarded with thoughts. What needs to get done? What happened yesterday? What could go wrong today? This mental clutter builds a fog that makes it difficult to focus, to feel grounded, or to respond to life with clarity. Starting the day with 10 minutes of silence clears that fog before it settles in. Meditation, as a structured form of silence, invites you to become the observer of your thoughts instead of their prisoner. It doesn't mean emptying your mind completely. It means sitting with yourself without distraction. Whether you focus on your breath, repeat a mantra, or simply observe your thoughts passing like clouds, meditation anchors you in the present moment. That anchoring is what gives you power. It stops your mind from racing toward worry, anxiety, or overwhelm. It centers you. It returns your attention to the only thing you can truly control, your awareness. This practice has measurable benefits. Neuroscience shows that just a few minutes of mindfulness meditation daily can lower cortisol, the stress hormone, increase gray matter in areas of the brain associated with emotional regulation, and improve cognitive function. Your ability to concentrate sharpens. Your emotional reactions become less volatile. You respond to life rather than react to it. That difference, response versus reaction, is subtle but profound. It's the difference between snapping at a loved one because you're stressed and calmly addressing the issue because you've created mental space. On a more personal level, silence each morning is a statement of intention. It says, "Before I let the world in, I will first listen to myself." In a world that constantly demands our attention, through phones, emails, social media, and endless responsibilities, carving out time to simply be is a radical act of self-respect. It tells your subconscious that your inner state matters, that peace is a priority, and that you are the author of your day, not its victim. People often underestimate the compound effect of small habits. 10 minutes of silence might seem insignificant on its own, but multiplied across weeks and months, it becomes transformative. You begin to notice patterns in your thinking. You start catching yourself before spiraling into negativity. You make better decisions because you're operating from a place of calm rather than chaos. Relationships improve because you're more present and emotionally available. Creativity flows more freely because your mind isn't constantly racing. Another often overlooked benefit of morning silence is how it sharpens your intuition. When the noise dies down, your inner voice becomes clearer. You start hearing the gentle nudges, whether it's a gut feeling about a decision, a sudden creative idea, or the realization that something in your life needs to change. These insights don't come when you're rushing from one task to the next. They come in stillness. And when you start to trust and follow them, your life begins to align more deeply with your values, your purpose, and your truth. There is also something deeply spiritual about beginning your day in silence. Regardless of your beliefs, sitting quietly with yourself connects you to something larger, whether that's your own soul, a higher power, or simply the deep intelligence of life itself. It cultivates humility. It reminds you that while you have control over your actions, you are also part of a much larger rhythm. In silence, you remember that being is just as important as doing. People who adopt this habit often notice they become less reactive throughout the day. The traffic jam that once ruined their mood becomes just a part of the day. The rude email no longer sends them into a tailspin. Why? Because they began the day with grounding. They reminded themselves that peace is an internal state, not something dictated by circumstances. And the more they return to that place of peace, the more powerfully they can move through life. For those new to this practice, it doesn't have to be complicated. Find a quiet spot, sit comfortably, and close your eyes. Focus on your breath. When your mind wanders, and it will, gently return your focus to your breath. You might use a timer or soft ambient music if silence feels too sharp at first. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is presence. Even if your mind races the entire time, you're still training it. You're still showing up for yourself. Over time, this morning ritual becomes a non-negotiable part of your routine, not because you have to, but because you want to, because you begin to notice that your days unfold differently when you start from a place of peace. You're calmer, clearer, more compassionate. You're less caught up in the urgency of everything. You carry a quiet strength, one that others feel even if they can't name it. In the end, 10 minutes of silence each morning may seem like a small thing, but it creates a ripple effect. It changes how you think, how you feel, and how you show up in the world. And when done consistently, it doesn't just change your mornings, it changes your life. Every day is filled with distractions, decisions, and demands. If you don't start your day with intention, you'll find yourself reacting to everyone else's priorities instead of living in alignment with your own. That's why taking a few moments each morning to write down 3 clear intentions or goals is such a powerful habit. It sets the tone for the day, provides structure to your thoughts, and gives your actions purpose. Instead of drifting through the day on autopilot, you start living it on purpose, with clarity and direction. Intentions are not the same as a to-do list. They are more personal and more meaningful. While to-do lists focus on external accomplishments, intentions focus on how you want to move through your day, mentally, emotionally, and physically. They act as a compass rather than a checklist. For example, an intention might be, I will stay calm in stressful situations, or I will focus on my own growth and not compare myself to others. These intentions help you cultivate the mindset and energy you want to carry with you, no matter what the day throws at you. Goals, on the other hand, give your day a sense of direction and progress. They anchor your focus. They ensure that your time is spent on what truly matters, rather than what's most urgent or most demanding. These goals don't have to be massive. In fact, the smaller and more achievable they are, the more likely you are to follow through and build momentum. One goal might be to drink more water, another might be to finish a short workout, or finally complete a task you've been procrastinating on. The key is to be intentional, not overwhelming. By writing down 3 goals each morning, you commit to taking small, meaningful steps forward. Writing is important here. Thoughts are fleeting, but writing makes them real. When you put pen to paper or type your goals out, you're giving your mind a clear signal. This matters. It's no longer just an idea floating around. It's a commitment. Your brain begins to organize itself around what you've written. This clarity reduces decision fatigue throughout the day. Instead of asking yourself over and over, what should I do next? You already have a plan that aligns with your values and priorities. Morning intention setting also helps counteract the effects of stress and overwhelm. When you're busy, it's easy to lose sight of what's important. The urgent drowns out the meaningful. But taking a few quiet minutes to focus inward and ask yourself, what do I want from this day? Reconnects you with your purpose. It reminds you that you are not just a responder to life's noise, you are a creator of your experience. That mental shift from reactivity to intentionality changes everything. Another benefit of this practice is that it increases self-awareness. When you consistently set intentions or goals, patterns start to emerge. You begin to notice what really matters to you, where you keep getting stuck, and what habits bring you closer to your ideal self. You also become more honest with yourself about your priorities. Are you spending your time in alignment with your values? Are your daily goals moving you toward the life you want to live? Writing your intentions helps you track your growth over time and adjust course when needed. This practice also nurtures self-discipline in a gentle, sustainable way. Many people think discipline means forcing yourself to do hard things. But real discipline is about staying loyal to what you said you would do, even when motivation fades. When you start each day by choosing 3 simple, meaningful goals and follow through with them, you train your mind to focus. You build trust with yourself. You prove day by day that you are capable of following through. This quiet consistency is where real transformation happens. And perhaps most importantly, setting intentions gives your day emotional direction. So many people wake up and immediately check their phone, absorbing negativity, comparisons, or distractions before they've even connected with themselves. This leaves them emotionally scattered for the rest of the day. By contrast, when you begin the morning by deciding how you want to think, feel, and act, you take back emotional control. You decide the emotional filter you'll wear. You might write, I intend to speak kindly to myself today, or I will handle criticism without defensiveness. These are small inner shifts, but they ripple outward, shaping the way you show up in every interaction. This practice doesn't require much time. Just 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, either in a journal or on your phone, is enough to make a difference. Over time, you'll start to notice that you feel more grounded, more focused, and more empowered. You'll stop wasting energy on unimportant things and start building a life aligned with your goals, values, and vision. Each small action you take from a place of intention becomes a building block toward a more meaningful life. Even on difficult days, when nothing seems to go right, those written intentions can act like a lighthouse, a reminder of what matters most. You can come back to them during lunch, after a tough meeting, or when you feel lost. They center you. They bring you back to yourself. And in a world that constantly pulls your attention in 1,000 directions, that inner centering is one of the most powerful tools you can carry. Ultimately, writing down 3 intentions or goals each morning isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's a commitment to live each day on purpose, to show up for yourself, and to build a life that reflects your deepest priorities. It doesn't require extraordinary effort, just a few quiet minutes and the willingness to lead your day instead of being led by it. There is a psychological burden that builds quietly and consistently when we avoid small tasks. These aren't necessarily big responsibilities or life-changing decisions. They're often minor things: making a phone call, replying to an email, organizing a messy drawer, or finally starting a project that's been sitting in the back of your mind. While they may seem trivial on the surface, their emotional weight compounds over time. Every time we postpone them, we carry the burden of unfinished business, which subtly drains our energy and self-confidence. That's why doing one small thing you've been avoiding each morning can dramatically shift your mindset, productivity, and overall emotional well-being. The human brain is wired for completion. Unfinished tasks create mental clutter. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to remember incomplete tasks more than completed ones. These lingering thoughts act as open loops in your mind, constantly pulling at your attention. Even when you're working on something entirely different, your mind will often drift back to the things you haven't finished. This reduces focus, increases stress, and contributes to a low-level anxiety that many people carry throughout the day. The solution: close one of those loops each morning. Starting your day by completing a task you've been avoiding serves as an act of reclaiming control. It signals to your brain that you are in charge of your actions, not your fears or procrastination habits. It creates a psychological victory early in the day which snowballs into motivation. When you accomplish something that previously felt like a block, no matter how small, it boosts your sense of capability. You've overcome resistance. That feeling carries forward into your next activity, and often you'll find yourself doing more than you initially planned because your confidence has been activated. Avoidance, even of small things, often stems from fear. Fear of discomfort, of failure, of confrontation, or simply the fear of effort. But these fears grow in the shadows. The more you avoid something, the bigger and more overwhelming it feels. The act of doing it reveals its true size, and often it's much smaller than what your mind made it out to be. For example, you may dread sending a certain email, imagining all sorts of negative outcomes or judgments. But once you sit down and write it, the task usually takes only a few minutes and turns out to be far less dramatic than expected. Facing the task shrinks the fear. Avoiding it feeds it. Doing one avoided task in the morning also creates a cleaner emotional slate for the rest of your day. Procrastination often leads to guilt and self-criticism. These emotions weigh you down and influence how you approach the rest of your responsibilities. You may not notice it consciously, but the sense of failure lingers in the background. Starting the day by tackling something you've been putting off flips the narrative. Instead of waking up feeling behind or ashamed, you begin with accomplishment. That shift in emotional energy is significant. This practice also nurtures discipline in a very practical, accessible way. Many people struggle with self-discipline because they set goals that are too large or too vague. Saying, "I'll be productive today," or "I'll get everything done," often leads to overwhelm and failure. But saying, "I'll do this one specific thing I've been avoiding," is clear, achievable, and powerful. It creates structure and builds trust with yourself. The more you prove that you will take action, even in small doses, the more your brain learns that you are someone who follows through. That identity shift builds momentum and makes larger goals feel less intimidating. Importantly, this habit helps reduce the mental backlog that clutters your inner world. Just as clutter in your physical environment can stress you out and make it hard to focus, mental clutter, those half-done tasks, unfinished conversations, or postponed decisions, creates a kind of psychic noise. Doing one thing you've been avoiding each morning begins the slow but steady process of clearing that noise. It's like cleaning a corner of a messy room each day. Over time, the space becomes livable again. The mental clarity this generates can lead to greater creativity, more effective problem-solving, and a deeper sense of peace. This habit doesn't require much time. It might take 5 minutes to do the task, and yet the mental relief you feel afterward can last all day. The goal isn't perfection or even dramatic change. It's movement, action, progress. Even if you only do one thing each morning, that's 365 avoided tasks completed in a year. That's powerful. That's transformation built on tiny steps. Sometimes, the task you choose might be emotionally uncomfortable, like having a difficult conversation, deleting old messages from a toxic relationship, or setting a boundary you've been avoiding. Other times, it might be practical, organizing files, making an appointment, or paying a bill. Either way, the act of doing it is a message to yourself. I am capable. I am responsible. I do not need to hide from the things that challenge me. By making this a morning practice, you give yourself the gift of a clean start every day. You begin with forward motion rather than inertia. You prove to yourself daily that resistance does not define you, your actions do. And once that belief takes root, there is almost nothing that can stop your growth. In the first few moments after waking up, your brain is in a highly suggestible state. It transitions from theta waves, a dreamlike, subconscious state, to alpha waves, a relaxed but alert state, which means whatever you feed your mind during this window has a profound effect on your mood, mindset, and direction for the day. That's why choosing to feed your mind with intention, before the noise of the world floods in, is one of the most life-changing habits you can develop. It's not just about avoiding negativity. It's about deliberately shaping the mental and emotional tone of your entire day. The problem is that most people begin their mornings passively. They wake up and immediately reach for their phone. Within seconds, they're scrolling through social media, reading news headlines, responding to emails, or watching short-form videos. While this may feel harmless, what's really happening is that the world is getting a head start on your attention, your focus, and your energy. Before you've even had a chance to decide who you want to be that day, you've already been bombarded by external influences: comparison, fear, urgency, and distraction. That's a dangerous way to start any day. Feeding your mind intentionally means choosing what thoughts and energy you allow into your mental space first. It could be something as simple as reading a few pages of a book that inspires you, listening to a podcast that challenges you to grow, journaling your thoughts, or even sitting in silence with an empowering affirmation. These activities might seem small, but they act like armor against the chaos of the day. They build a mental foundation of strength, clarity, and purpose that makes you more resilient to external negativity. Consider the difference between these two people. One wakes up and starts the day with 15 minutes of positive input, reading a book on self-discipline, journaling their goals, or listening to a motivational message. The other wakes up and immediately dives into Instagram, Twitter, or the news, encountering a mix of sensational headlines, unrealistic expectations, and opinions from people they don't even know. Which one is more likely to have a focused, empowered, and intentional day? The answer is obvious. What you feed your mind determines how you think, feel, and act, and therefore how you live. This habit is especially important for anyone trying to make a change or improve their life. Whether you're healing from past pain, building a new business, overcoming anxiety, or simply trying to be more present with your family, your thoughts are either supporting your transformation or sabotaging it. And since the first thoughts you entertain each morning are usually the most powerful, feeding your mind with positivity, wisdom, or intention becomes a form of self-leadership. It's saying, I choose the tone of my day. I won't let the world choose it for me. Feeding your mind first also helps you stay aligned with your values and long-term goals. Life is full of distractions and short-term temptations. But when you begin each day grounded in your vision, by reviewing your goals, revisiting your purpose, or simply reminding yourself what kind of person you want to be, you reduce the risk of drifting. This mental clarity acts as a compass, helping you say no to what doesn't serve you, and yes to what truly matters. It creates a buffer between you and reactive, compulsive behavior, which is the root of so many bad habits. Another benefit of this practice is emotional regulation. The content you consume in the morning can either stir anxiety or create peace. If the first thing you do is read negative news or check stressful messages, your cortisol levels, stress hormones, spike. This puts you in a reactive state, making it harder to focus, stay calm, or think clearly throughout the day. On the other hand, if you start your morning with content that uplifts, educates, or grounds you, your emotional state becomes more balanced, and you're better equipped to handle whatever challenges arise. Feeding your mind intentionally also strengthens your mental discipline. Just like physical exercise builds muscles, consistently choosing empowering input strengthens your ability to focus, think critically, and remain grounded in your truth. Over time, you become less dependent on external validation and more rooted in internal clarity. This is incredibly important in a world that constantly pulls your attention in 1,000 directions. It's important to note that this habit doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. Even 10 minutes of conscious input each morning can create noticeable shifts in your mindset and energy. What matters most is consistency and intentionality. You could start with a single quote, a short passage from a favorite book, a 5-minute journal entry, or a short guided meditation. The goal isn't perfection, it's presence. Presence with your thoughts, your direction, and your power to shape the day ahead. Ultimately, feeding your mind before the world does is an act of self-respect. It's a way of declaring that your mental space is sacred, and that you will not allow the chaos of the world to define your energy, your choices, or your peace. It's a quiet act of rebellion in a noisy world, and over time, it becomes a transformative habit, one that elevates your awareness, deepens your resilience, and brings you closer to the person you're meant to be. Every morning becomes a new opportunity to begin again, this time with clarity, intention, and strength.